is. It's once again Wednesday, so I'm Mr. Nailsin, so I guess it's time to do Mr. Nailsin's Wednesday Comics. And got a bit of a stack here. Not a big stack, but more than just three. So let's get into it. So jump back into Wesley Dodd's The Sandman, which I did like the first one, and I like this one too. The Riley Rossmo art, I think I said that last time around. I didn't think it fit well with the Tim Drake story, and I wasn't interested in the Tim Drake story anyway. But here, I don't know. It seems to click with it. You've got this mystery going on. Wesley Dodds has got somebody up to shenanigans and after his secrets, and so he's got quite the mystery that his own. Certainly his career and no doubt his own life depends on. So it's got it. Everything comes together and works. I hope the payoff is really good. But so far, it's my favorite of these spinoffs of Justice Society. The Green Lantern one, not gonna bother since it's decided to be a political pamphlet rather than a comic book series. But meanwhile, the other one that's not as good as Sandman, I don't think, but it's pretty good. Jay Garrick, The Flash, so much so that I thought maybe they should just make him the regular Flash for a while. Well, I don't know about that. But anyway, this one, you get the Justice Society in there, the original one in the past, and even the Spectre shows up. So you see young Jay Garrick in action and all that. So I suspect you'll probably get a bit of that, since it does involve this forgotten villain that comes back, is what the setup is here. And and the art's pretty good. He's got this robot cyborg bear that he has to deal with. Meanwhile, there's the struggles. Him and Joan, their daughters, come back, but they're very old with a teenage girl. And their memories come flooding back. So the flashbacks is like the memories that Jay lost is now coming back to him. So it'll, I imagine the orchestration will come together in the final payoff. So, the Boom, as she's called, is, learning to be a teenager in current era. And all that, and Stargirl's helping her out, and there's some silliness, and then, oh no, Cyborg Bear shows up again. How'd that happen? Well, we'll have to find out later. But it doesn't have the special kick to it that Sandman does, at least for me. I don't know how else to put it, but it's pretty good. And actually like these spinoffs more than the Justice Society ongoing title. Meanwhile, back in the World's Finest universe with Teen Titans, pretty much the same thing, and the cover tells it all, that Dick Grayson is struggling with the idea that Batman doesn't really want him to be in the Titans, and he's definitely forbidding him for revealing his secret identity to his friends, which causes them not to trust him, and so that's what's developing here. Meanwhile, you get quite a bit of action in this one, which is... a first for the series, as most of it is teenage high school drama type stuff. And, and still, oh, gee, I don't understand why Aqualad doesn't like me or whatever. Yeah, well. So anyway, the action breaks out, and it has to do with a former teammate that they sent packing. And so, that sets this up. And then the back and forth between the group and whatnot. So, but the art is absolutely fantastic. And, it's not as good as World's Finest and on par with that. But so far, this one might be one of the better ones of the series. It took 5 issues, but it's not bad. I think it's on par with like Jay Garrick's Flash, although I probably liked the Flash better. And speaking of the Flash, back to the Justice Society of America. Same thing with Teen Titans. Something finally kind of sort of happened. They had this adventure dealing with Solomon Grundy, but it's only just there to have an adventure, and it's the setup for Salem the Witch, which is the other lost child returned, where Dr. Fate is supposed to have had this sidekick of this witch, and she doesn't accept Khalid as the new Dr. Fate doesn't respect him because she thinks she should be the new Dr. Fate since she was the protege and trained, apprentice, if you will, of Dr. Fate in the past. Just no one remembers her, although they should start remembering her now. But anyway, Batman is there, but at least he's kind of treated better in other titles than his own. And, of course, there's this back and forth with the woman that supposedly will become his daughter in the future. So then there's this thing with Icicle, and I don't know if they're following a similar path as the TV show Stargirl did. I don't know. But, and then, well, this creepy interview between Dr. Midnight and the Atom's ex-wife, which you recall all the way back from Identity Crisis, and it turns out she was the killer in that mystery. Spoilers. So I guess there's something afoot there. So anyway, it's a little bit better than some of the others. It's still very much more or less soap opera, but it's not really just constantly establishing the team. I mean, good Lord, you're 7 issues in, and finally there's some plot points here for that might actually lead to an adventure. So, but still, again, spinoff Sandman and the Flash are infinitely superior reads to the main title, which is kind of odd, you know. So anyway, finally, Wildcats is just the book that I felt sorry for, so I stayed with it. This is the final issue. It does end their main story. Well, let me pull it out anyway. It's like the art was never that great in it. Grifter Cole Cash has to carry the whole thing, and he's a pretty good character, sort of the a-hole with a heart of gold character, and he does it well. But the rest of it, they have their big final battle, and just for that, as far as wrapping up the story, it sort of works. They have this spooky Lou version of the Void, and back in her old suit, except her head is a floating skull. But it's kind of an interesting look as they changed her into the villain of this story. And supposedly that's it for her, huh? Well, we'll see. But anyway, they leave things like they could return to it and all of that. And it was the little comic book that tried, and I appreciate that on some level. The art was pretty weak. I did not like how they handled Caitlin Fairchild. That was a little disturbing. But overall, in better hands, perhaps, I don't know. It might have done even better. But again, just having guest stars from the Justice League and Batman and stuff like that, and Batman villains in it, I just saw that as unnecessary. Because I, of course, am a stickler of the opinion that Wildstorm characters should be in their own universe. I don't know why they just won't go back to that. It functioned for quite a while, and the series gets a chance to breathe and stand on its own. And if you've got the talent and skill there, then people will turn out for it. But just keeping it stuck inside the rest of it, I don't see how that helps it at all. In fact, I think it's a detriment to it. So, but I guess it's there to stay. So anyway, it had some high points to it story-wise. The art suffered quite a bit, and I think it looked like it was kind of rushed in a lot of places, and so I guess that was the case. But that was it, and it's done now. I suppose they'll revisit it again, which means probably all of this is meaningless. I don't know, but unless you're really into the Wildstorm characters, it wasn't anything to check out. But it had its moments that I enjoyed, and so there is that. There was some complaints about it because they thought one of the characters, Deathblow, was gender swapped. Well, he can jump into other bodies. His consciousness can, and so for a brief moment he was in the body of a woman, and then he was in the body of a robot, and then in the body of a giant, Hulk ripoff and Maul. So that's all it was, but that's the thing of the damage and the radioactivity of the woke era, is one immediately assumed that that's what that was, and he'd be a woman for forever. But no, he's just, well, his consciousness gets around when it comes to bodies. So that's about all that was. So, there's something, I guess. Finally, Superman does a fairly okay resolution of this new character, Chained, who was this experiment that Luther did. And, well, he didn't like being Luther's experiment, and then he had a bad relationship with his father and stuff like that. I'm sure we'll revisit him soon. And similar powers to the Connor Kent Superboy, which gives a bit more backstory to how he came about with Luther's experiments. But similar to Wildcats, there's multiple artists here who seem to do a rush job here and there. Some are pretty good, some not, so it kind of hurts the flow of the story. Pick one. But all in all, not too bad. And Superman has to resort to kryptonite to solve the problem. And, well, I guess we all know what kryptonite does. Uh-oh. So, but he did it all to save everybody, even Lex Luthor, because, well, he's a hero. So, for the storyline, as far as the Chained, for the time being, I'm sure he'll escape again. It was not bad. It was all right. Over at Marvel, the Hulk continues to be, their best title. I think it's Moon Knight's the other one, but I'm thinking the Hulk's on his own has taken the top spot, and it's continuing in the horror stuff, and a lot of it's getting a bit repetitive, but the narrative flow is very entertaining. The art is returned to its original style. Who's the artist again? I forget his name. Klein, yeah. Does really well, and is fitting for the horror aspects of the story. And then, you get a new Ghost Rider in here. So this thing here where the depictions of the transformations into the Hulk and the depictions of his transformation, which actually Travel Foreman did that when he goes back into Banner. It's never been so horrifically done, which makes you realize, boy, how you want to avoid that transformation, because it looks gruesomely painful. But yet another Ghost Rider, but it appears the Spirit of Vengeance, Zarathos, I believe his name is, can just jump in and out of all kinds of people as long as there's a motorcycle available. And such is the case here. But really fitting, there is a history with the Hulk and Ghost Rider. And in this new horror genre, even more fitting here, where they're both kind of these supernatural, well, not the Hulk, but they're both monsters in a lot of ways. So I can't recommend it enough. It's pretty damn good. It's burning it up at the moment. And it's a bit of an anomaly because most of Marvel sucks. Case in point, the original Secret Wars really kickstarted my serious comic book collecting way back when I was but a young lad. And this one is supposed to be a story that takes place in between panels. And it's just a Spider-Man story of him traveling to alien worlds, and somebody's testing him. He thinks it's the Beyonder, but apparently is not. You get a little flashbacks, of course, to explain the Secret Wars and what happened there. But the rest of it is Spider-Man battling monsters. Human Torch gets brought into it as well. He's in his black suit, the original, the symbiote and everything. And that appears to be where the story's going to go. And then here's Crusher Creel, the Absorbing Man. He gets brought in too. And then, Hobgoblin shows up. So Hobgoblin was not involved in Secret Wars, although I suppose he could have been. But here he is brought into this. And right before Spider-Man got zapped over into Secret Wars was that big seeming conclusion of the Hobgoblin story. Of course, he knew it wasn't. But, he thought, he would finally find out who he was, and then all he does is find his mask floating in the river. So it was all very mysterious stuff. I loved the original Hobgoblin story. unfortunately, it didn't really pay off. And yeah, but anyway, so like the imagery and everything, the art is great, and Tom DeFalco is a solid writer, but the premise just isn't all that. A while back, they did do this like untold story of the Secret Wars in Thor about things that went on between him and the Enchantress. And I mean, it was a one-issue thing, but that one handled it much better. And it actually it was written to where it fit. So you'd think, oh yeah, that could have happened that way. And so it was fine. That's what I expected this series to do. I guess they're just reminding people of the old Secret Wars. They're going to do reprints and the facsimile editions of the whole series, which is pretty cool. As for this series, well, I don't know. Not that great of a start. My guess is, in order for this, if they want to keep it in keeping that it would work within the actual narrative of Secret Wars, is that Spider-Man and the Human Torch and, the villains as well, just won't remember this happened when they're put back in their proper place. Whoever's doing it, they refer to the Beyonder as, I don't know, an anomaly or something. So I guess these are the Beyonders, that kind of thing. I didn't really care for that. I thought the original explanation of the Beyonder was much better. But anyway, so I guess all will be revealed at the end. But in order for it to fit, where this takes place in a brief moment after the Secret Wars is pretty much over, and Reed Richards is trying to figure out a way to get him back home. And Spider-Man takes a moment for himself to go off and get something to eat. And then he gets zapped into this other battle. And then never mentions it again. So, I mean, it would have to be some mind wipe or time travel shenanigans, and that it never happened or some such. And unless it's also going to be something that Spider-Man has long forgotten, but now it rears its ugly head. That kind of thing. I don't know. But it's probably just to try to pump up the name Secret Wars, the original one, even though the movie coming will probably be more in line with the Hickman version that they did a while back, that destroyed it was an interesting story. I did enjoy it, but it destroyed the Marvel Universe, and then it became the all woke, all the time woke Marvel Universe, and the rest is the sad history of its demise. So anyway, once again, DC Comics takes the win with the Justice Society spinoff titles, and Sandman most notably, I think. And sadly, didn't really enjoy Secret Wars Battle World, which again is sadly because I like I said, Secret Wars holds a very special place in my heart. But anyway, what are you gonna do? So again, for the win this week, Sandman. All right, thanks for spending a little time with me, and we'll do it again next week on Mr. Nailsin's Wednesday Comics.